Well, maybe if you like, we can take it off, and I think it will be better for everyone to understand us. We are pretty much in the social distance that it's meant to be. Well, thank you for joining this roundtable. We'd like to discuss a little bit about the key topics around the fundraising for an early stage startup. So you are investors. That's great that we can leverage your experience to share it with the startups that are aiming for this fundraising. I think that it will be nice that you can do a quick intro of yourself. I'm sure you can do it much better than me, and please.
Yes, pleasure to do so. Tim Juergens from SeedLink in Barcelona, a pre-seed seed fund established early last year, focusing on digital health and specifically biomarkers, DTX, and also platforms. Before 24 years in the healthcare industry in both pharma and medical devices. Happy to contribute to today's session.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leonor. I'm part of the ventures team at Plug and Play, and I support the offices in Madrid, Paris, and Barcelona. For those who don't know, Plug and Play, it's a early stage venture capital with offices in 40 cities. We are probably one of the most active early stage investors. We do 200 investments per year across different verticals, and health tech is one of the biggest ones. We are also in open innovation platform. That means that we work with 500 of the world's biggest companies. We work with their innovation teams to understand their technological challenges and to find the best startups to solve them. So our health vertical has 50 partners such as Roche, Bayer, Philips, and we have accelerated 400 startups so far since 2015.
Hi, I'm Jahed. I'm an angel investor and operator. I was recently at Conversa Health, which was just acquired by Amwell for $150 million a couple months ago as head of product. And previous to that, I led product at ZoomCare in the United States, which is a D2C healthcare and chatbot play that also exited. Currently, I'm a mentor and EIR with 500 startups, and I invest in digital health startups and artificial intelligence startups, specifically in the enterprise vertical. But I'm specifically currently focusing on pre-seed stage and seed stage startups.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's start the discussion. Fernando mentioned, I mean, there is a lot of money flowing right now in the health ecosystem. Where the money is going? Where do you see, in your experience? I mean, we don't look for a market perspective, or, well, you can also talk about that, but can you start, Tim, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, so what do we see at the moment in the space? I think a movement which is visible throughout the ecosystem is the move from point solutions to more integrated solutions. Let me give you an example. Digital therapeutics, which initiated with one specific indication and one specific app, move more into a holistic offering, platform-based, integrating different indications, subsequently move on. That also leads to let's say the biomarkers, which are originally established as a point solution biomarker, to come together with these kind of platform solutions. So this is what in the early stages we see now pretty much with the portfolio startups, but also in the market, that this kind of integration of proven point solutions to more platform-driven health solutions is happening.
Interesting. No, it's a nice view. And Leonor, do you want to add?
I think it's an interesting point what you mentioned, because we have seen this exactly in the end is making everything seamless. And we've seen this in, for example, the organization of digital and phygital events. So I agree that with this point of going from one point to embedded services. Also from my experience, what I've seen, it's enhancing both the patient experience and the hospital experience. So everything with COVID, we've seen that hospitals are not anymore the center of the health system. The system has arrived to the homes of patients. So everything that it's remote monitoring, you mentioned before, telemedicines, hardware devices for chronic diseases. That's from my experience what I've seen the most over like the past year.
I think from my experience specifically, I think that augmentation of human intelligence and artificial intelligence in healthcare is really important, because you have a lot of folks coming in who are like, they have a solution in search of a problem, right? So especially with things like deep learning and really cool new tools in artificial intelligence, you really have to focus on your champions in these health systems and in the private health system, who will then say like, here's a real problem. And money really follows that from what I've seen. When you can, because no one is going to turn to you and say, oh, you have a great black box AI healthcare solution. Please set it free on my patient population, right? That's never going to happen. But if you have a stepwise approach to how you can say, remove the busy work that a nurse has to do now that she's doing it in her house, right? And she only has to look at what you're doing at the end of the day and audit it. That's a huge value add. And I'm seeing a lot of money go to that. And it's also some of the bigger exits I've followed are things that augment human intelligence instead of replacing something, right?
So talking a little bit more about AI startups, not in general, what do you think, or what do you investors look for in an AI-based startup? Leonor, do you want to start with this one?
In an AI-based startup focused on healthcare.
Yes, of course. Sorry.
So I think what's critical here is that accuracy in the industry, it's like a key. You cannot play with the health of a patient. So I think that having a good partner, that can be a university, that can be a hospital, that can be a pharma, but working from the beginning with someone that can help you go through security protocols, data privacy, testing. So clinical validation is key. And then having, well, this is more related to fundraising, but having a multidisciplinary team that helps you not only with the technology behind your company and all things related to data protection, but with the business side. When it's a startup, you need to escalate it, validate your model, and then get the best business partner that you can in order to escalate, and not only to other industries, but worldwide.
Sure. Jahed.
Yeah, I think you hit on a couple of things there, but I think on the enterprise side, especially if you're looking at enterprise solutions for health systems, you need to have a partner. So these systems can take you years to sell into. So you need a partner, and you need someone who can actually say, who's been there, right, on the business side. You can say, I can speak to a chief medical officer, a chief nursing officer, and help them assuage any problems they might have around what you're doing. And someone who understands privacy and security concerns. That's super important. And then I think on the other side, this is maybe a little bit of an unsophisticated comment, but some of the decks that I've seen recently don't have technical co-founders. You're going to need a technical co-founder. It's enough for me to pass on something. If you're trying to build an AI startup, but neither one of you is hands-on on that, that's going to be a problem. And then on the consumer side, you have to think of what I look for in consumer health startups is, sure, if the AI, if the team is technical, that's great. But in consumer, you're really playing almost like a user acquisition game, where you have to think about how are we going to get patients to find this? How are we going to get them engaged? And you really have to think on that, think through the behavioral design part of it, because your data and your AI stack might be amazing, but if you don't have a way of getting patients engaged with it so that they actually get to some outcome, it's not going to do anything for you. So the last point being, you have to be close to patients, right? So that's on the consumer side.
Tim, you want to add?
Yeah, just one additional aspect, the points mentioned by my two colleagues here, I fully sign and support. We always start from that unmet need. And then when AI comes into play, for us, it's really important to understand if that AI does the trick. And it comes back to the clinical validation. From my perspective, the recommendation to the founders is don't play AI. play the solution you bring to an unmet problem, and then two pages further down the deck indicate how AI helps you to actually meet this problem, solve this problem, and how you validate it. Absolutely, this is the key.
No, I think you raise very interesting topics, and I have faced some of them with Medictor itself. So yeah, I totally agree. So maybe jumping to another challenge. What is the go-to-market strategy? Because yes, we have the solution, we have validated, but then how we access this market? Tim, you want? Sorry, I think it was Jahed to turn to start.
Sure.
This way we make it more.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it quick. I'll dice it up into kind of enterprise and consumer. So on the enterprise side, I think what Leonor and Tim have already mentioned, I agree with, is the strategic side of the business, right? You have to have a partner. Or is it a university? Is it someone who is a champion within a health system who can really say, I'm going to run with this, and because I believe in the solution with you, right? I think that's key. Some of those people might end up on your cap table as strategic investors, and that's really important, right? For us at Conversa Health 4 years ago, when I joined as the first product hire and built the team there, we had built a great relationship with the US's 8th largest health system, Northwell, and their chief nursing officer loved what we did, right? But at the same time, she was cautious. So I think like go to market then really dictates, how is this gigantic contract of $8 or $10 million great? It looks great on paper, but what are the distinct steps that we're going to take with this partner and strategic investor to execute on it? On the consumer side, I feel like stop me if I'm repeating myself, but I really think that go to market there has to focus on almost the consumer growth tactics that you've seen amongst like Andreessen Horowitz, who puts out really great stuff on this, and other folks in the growth space who are talking about how to identify the key user segments for your population, where are they at on the internet, how is the onboarding experience, all that stuff becomes really, really important. It's almost a completely different game from the enterprise side.
Tim?
Yeah, the fast iterations along the problem solving. And proving it out, testing, as Leonor already said. I think that is more important, specifically in the early stages, than let's say the market access, the technical go-to-market. It's more making sure the requirements are met. UX UI is really seamlessly integrating, that you're not going for a point solution, but you already know how things are integrating into a certain care processes. Don't look at it from a tech side. Look at it from the user experience of the person, which ultimately needs to love it in order to apply it and then generate some business. Oftentimes the business plan is written, more from the technical breakdown perspective. Yes, that's the exercise to be done, right? But to be successful, you need to start at the other end.
Sure. Leonor?
Yeah, I think that you mentioned a lot of points. I think that here we can see several logos of platforms that can help you get to clients. So be there, be visible. That's especially in early stage startups. And also, I think that especially in the health sector, you don't have to focus on revenue models, and don't be afraid to pivot. And if you have good partners, don't be afraid to do some consulting projects first, as long as it helps you to validate and then scale. So as we mentioned a couple of times, be sure that you have the good partners, and there are many platforms that can help you achieve that.
Definitely. Just to add on to that, to both of your points there, that's kind of the message behind this, kind of obscure chief medical officer, partner, et cetera. Getting these pilots is really important, right? Because then you can rapidly test with them and say, when this payload from my API comes into your nurse's interface, is this what she needs to see, right? You may not get paid for it, but getting it can lead to something, right? And it's rare. One of the only times where I'll say that, because a lot of times, sometimes it won't in other verticals, but in healthcare, if it does, it'll pay off big, right? If it's a big vertical with a lot of care coordination and other costs behind it.
I'm talking about metrics. I mean, of course, you see a lot of presentations on early stage, they may have some metrics already. which are the key metrics that you want to see? What are the key things? Of course, this can vary a lot depending on the problem that this startup is solving, but there are some that you can mention or not. Maybe the answer is no, Cristian, depending on.
Yeah. Yes, there are a few. It depends on the problem space we're looking at. Let's look at the example of a new solution which helps in a specific therapeutic process to deliver more accurate medicine as needed. So there I, of course, want to have those key measures on the effectiveness and also the user feedback. Those two aspects I would look at, because that's the core element in value creation for that specific solution. So I would always derive the metrics of relevance for that specific solution from which problem is going to be solved. And then if the clinical effectiveness is there, then the next stage will be more easy to achieve. For example, some commercial pilots to be established, or first of all, pilots to prove out more in detail. So I would derive it always, or that's how we do it actually, from the problem to solve and then derive the metrics from it. So I would not say, and then you have the standard ones, of course, the user growth, the churn, how many people do really commit to stay with the solution, but that's second.
Yeah, in the health sector, I like to take things with a pinch of salt. So you need to understand the timing. So my metrics, again, would be pilots and the results of that pilot. And anything else that I would look into in another vertical, I think it's a bit less, it's important, but maybe in the growth stage. But in early stage, I prefer to see the problem and how they approach it and the results of 1 or 2 pilots.
Good. Yeah, I definitely think the pilots is a good one. And I think that, like you said, it depends, but if you're looking at something that's going direct to patients in an app store or something like that, then a lot of your metrics are going to be, we're in year 12 of post the financial collapse, right? And venture is taking off big time. So we really begin to understand these businesses in the consumer context from the perspective of what is a good churn rate, what is good engagement. But I think the opportunity for folks is to really look at what is the behavior that I'm trying to get a patient to adopt, and what is the right metric and right view, what is the right time frame on that behavior, right? If it's something like a D2C diabetes management app or something like, Omada was D2C, it isn't now, but it started, Omada Health is a diabetes app, for instance. Your metric could be something like, did the person weigh themselves once this week, right? That could be their one metric. Another one being, what is their HbA1c? So you need to kind of craft that story depending on what your solution is, and then back it out to the standard metrics around, usage, engagement, all that kind of stuff.
It also depends if it's B2B, B2C. Yeah, for those who are listening, I'm talking more on a B2B and open innovation consultant point of view.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that before, and I think it's also a nice topic. B2B, B2C. What do you see that has more traction in the stories that you know? You have any?
That's interesting. So
any rule?
B2C, I think that it's easier to have a bigger traction since the beginning. But B2B, I think the timing, it's very important. So again, if you talk to a VC, you need to make sure that that VC knows your market, knows your timing, knows the resources that you need. Because if B2B goes well, it's exponential. And B2C device, what I've seen from B2C, it's more devices. And it can have a nice growth in beginning, but then you need to put a lot of effort in order to avoid your churn. But regarding like contracts of big pharma companies, of big hospitals, it's more difficult that you're going to have the same churn as in B2C.
Yeah, and to add to that, if I may, there are also solutions which don't really have a B2C market, right? When I look into solutions
Sure.
which are optimizing care processes, for example, help to identify people of risk of having a certain disease, helping the process management to be more efficient in care instances and so forth. They all do not have a B2C model in that sense, but they sell completely differently through increase in efficiency of processes, for example. What's the cost effectiveness of applying this algorithm in steering the care provision in a hospital, for example? So this is just an additional aspect for those other market segments, which are set to really provide a strong value in healthcare by providing more efficient care provision overall.
You want to add something on the B2B, B2C?
Well, on the B2B side, I think.
B2B2C.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's always B2B2C. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
you
yes.
never avoid
Yeah,
the
yeah.
C in some way. I mean,
Definitely.
most of the
I think on the B2B side, specifically on go-to-market, you need to be thinking about the next motion that you're going to be making, right? So like, sure, you might sell one point solution, as Tim was talking about earlier, but like that platform vision is really important because, and I hear this a lot often these days, land and expand, right? It's almost becoming like, it's like a refrain in my head, but it's very important for your business if you're in the B2B sector where you're really selling to hospitals and eventually to a consumer. Think about once a nurse is in love with your product or the doctor, whoever is the current user in that enterprise, what are the opportunities adjacent to it, right? That you could actually be working into as well. And of course, the data, right? So making sure that you are one, stewarding it well, right? From the perspective of privacy and security. But second, is it clean? Can you build products on top of it to open up other opportunities? You got to do that from day one, right? You don't want to be doing that 2 years into it and hiring people off of Upwork to clean your data. It's going to be a mess, right? So.
Great. No, good. I think that was a nice discussion. Let's talk about another angle about AI. Maybe it's a tricky question, maybe not. Do you say any special technology in AI specific that maybe has more success or more potential or not? I mean,
What?
We are talking about
Oh,
NLP,
yeah.
image recognition, chatbots. You know a little bit about chatbots. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not the right question because we are talking about the solution, not the problem that we are solving.
Yeah, I think AI is a supportive technology, right? And has a potential to contribute in many use cases and improve the quality of the solution. So that said, when we look into image recognition, we invested into a startup which helps to optimize the diagnosis of lesions in the dental area, and it's already now based on the evidence available. It's already now more effective than the average dentist. Now, that is based on AI as one component of creating, let's say, the identification. No? Same is possible in completely different use cases. That's why I rather see it as a supportive technology and can benefit in different use cases. And that's also how we look at it from an investment perspective. Nobody needs to knock at the door and say, I do something with AI. I always want to know what's the problem you solve.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
do. Some people don't.
Okay.
Yeah, there. Leonor, did you have something to add?
No, just to add to that point, also you need to understand who's your target. If the elder generation of nowadays is your target instead of a chatbot, you might prefer to face the challenge with voice recognitions through Alexa or any other device. So more than, I agree with Tim that in the end, the technology is the way to solve that problem, but we've seen biometrics, we've seen hardware devices for chronic diseases, and as I mentioned before, natural language processors. But if they only come with the technology, again, we need to solve the problem for the right audience.
I think the really, I guess I'd call them boring technologies like text classification, I'm excited about because I'll give you an example. There's a friend of mine started a company, Fathom AI, that simply uses the latest NLP technologies to classify billing codes, to eliminate all of the millions and millions and millions of people have to sit there and say, what is this billing code and how does it match up with what's happening in the healthcare system and what happened in the room, right? So I think that's like a boon. And I think also Nina Capital is in the room maybe, but I'm excited about some of their investments because they've kind of fit this boring thesis for me where they're using things like AI and image classification to help radiologists do everyday, day-to-day things so they can focus on the highest level expertise that they have and they don't have to worry about processing images, having an assistant look at something really, and that helps workflows become much more efficient. And it's just out there, it's ready to be used, right?
So shifting a little bit the conversation, what would be the tip to a startup when looking for an investor? What they have to choose as the partner? What is the recommendation for them to choose this partner for this journey?
So as I mentioned before, I think that it's crucial one that understands your timing, that understands the resources that you need, that can make the right introductions. And there are many VC funds that are verticalized, such as Savi's, Chip2B, the health vertical, plug and play, that can provide you with the right introductions to make those POCs, pilot projects that we're mentioning here.
Yes, absolutely supported. And then I think the insights and experience the partners and the team of those VC can bring in addition might also specifically early stage might be extremely valuable. So that advice to that startup which comes in pre-seed and is looking for the right investor, I would always say, before you really go to the VC, consider the business angels you want to have on board and reserve a ticket for those and handpick them. It's not about the money primarily, it's about what the individuals can help you to achieve. And they will also oftentimes be able to achieve or help you to find the right VCs, right? Because they know the space. So, and from there, you'll pick the right VC for the phase you're in, because that will change quite quickly. You know that much better than others. So, yes.
Yeah, I think that phase thing is very important because it is the best time in history to be one of you, though it may not feel that way, a founder. It is the worst time to be us. Rounds are extremely high priced, valuations are super high. So this is the best time in history to do what you're doing. So pick your money wisely, basically, like to echo Tim's points and some of Leonor's points. So make us do stuff for you, right? Look at our LinkedIns, find people who could be customers, ask for introductions, ask for anything from us, make people do stuff for you, right? Like, because at your stage, to go to the phase argument, early on, you need to have money is like a commodity at this point. So you need to have people who have relationships for hires, for business, for whatever, who can bring that along with money. And then on the other side of it, once you grow a little bit, I really see the space for founders kind of bifurcating. So you'll have the seed pre-stage folks like, kind of like us, incubators, accelerators who are really putting money in and expertise in it and helping out hands-on. On the other side of it, you got folks like Tiger Capital who are running models and saying, ship that founder money as fast as possible. We don't care, we'll achieve 25% IRR this year with the amount of velocity of money we're putting out there. These people in the middle are going to get eaten up in the next 10 years. People who are like, who want board seats, who want to tell you how to run the business, who don't really know, who aren't in the thick of it with you. That's my point of view. So as a founder, to say it again, I think you need to be, money is really commoditized. You need to make us do stuff for you, right? Think about us and our connections and what we can do for you.
I think you raised really nice tips to everyone. And just to finish, could you just give a final tip for all the startups that are looking for fundraising? A quick tip, each of you who wants to start.
This is a tip from one of my last experiences. So once you've done all the team, it's crucial. Not only the technical team, because many of these startups come from maybe university spin-off, and they have a very talented technological team, but fundraising is an art. You can learn to fundraise, but it's better if you partner directly with, or you partner with someone that already knows how to do it, or they have a very strong business profile, and try to make it as quick as possible, the fundraising, to focus on products and pilots.
In addition to that, fully seconded, in addition to that, make your funding plan. Who do you want, when, and then execute by the plan. Don't go with your A target, go with your B target and test your pitch, optimize your pitch before you go to the A target, and spend your time wisely. Actually, ideally, you have 15 pitches and 10 of those want to join you. That will never happen, but your plan should be designed like that you're highly effective in using your time and reaching your objectives.
And I think I completely agree with both of those points. I think as well, I see maybe 10 of these a day, and I'm doing other things as well. So to Leonor's point as well, fundraising and even down to the pitch deck is an art, and there's also some formulas emerging for that. So you definitely go out there, see what's out there, try to put yourself in our position and be like, okay, if I'm looking at 10 of these today, what does this person need to understand in the first 3 slides of this deck so they don't just move on to the next one, right? I'm just speaking from my recent experience, because coming in here, I didn't really get that even 4 years ago when I was helping startups with their Series A and Series B pitches. But now at the very early stage, I have to really say, to Tim's point as well, think of that plan and visualize that plan in your deck, right? Work backwards from it all the way through and make sure that that story makes sense so that you capture the people who you really want to capture.
Thank you very much. I think that we raised really nice topics, and I'm sure that I leave the floor for you. Okay. Questions. Okay.
Actually, I would like to know what you're investing into startups. What are you looking for? Is it the market opportunity first, or an impact of that solution to people? It can be could happen to therapy or new technology. And then Leonor, you talked about the team, and I really agree with you. And I'm wondering how you deal with some projects coming from university. Can be good project, but they don't have someone who have these business skills. Are you investing as a strategic investor sometimes, or do you have like a team behind you that could be a complementary into the project?
So to the second question that was directed to me, you mean if we invest in teams that don't have this business profile? I think I understand better without the microphone.
Sorry. So a project coming from university, they have only scientists. There's no one with the business skills. So my question is, for example, Plug and Play or SeedLink, you have like a team that have this business background that can be integrated into the project. You know what I mean? Can be part of this team, like as a complementary.
So we do invest in companies that do not have a business profile, but they learn to do it on a try and learn, or in the end, the best MBA is doing your startup. So if you don't have the business skill, but you're able to do it, that's okay. And otherwise, we don't do venture building, that in the case that we don't do matches between technical teams and business teams, because we usually participate in rounds of startups that already have certain traction. So I've never been in that position of matching profiles.
And probably to add to that, as you also addressed SeedLink, we also do pre-seed seed. That means the teams are well established when they qualify, and the need is clearly identified to your first question, and the problem solved as well. But that stage before, we also use the network of incubators in different countries we work with in order to link and we give some recommendations on where to get to that or how to get to that point. So it depends very much if you're really on an angel stage in that sense and looking for the people, you'll get angel advice. If you knock at the door for funding at SeedLink, pre-seed seed, then these elements would need to be in place.
Okay, thank you. So very interesting. So for the next forum, maybe we can change a little bit the dynamics and think about solutions or unmet medical needs in order to offer the investors a more attractive event, let's say. Thank you very much for your participation.
Oh, thank you.
So now we're going to go with the stars of the forum. We will continue with the pitches.